It is
Thank
my
you, Jeff.
understanding
You're welcome.
that Roger plans to join as soon as he arrives home, and I anticipate Jesse will join when cross-country practice is over. So, but we can start the meeting with the three of us because 3 is a quorum for this meeting. So I apologize to everybody for the confusion. I'm very
and certainly
sorry.
I do as well.
And I'm very sorry that it took us so long to iron everything out tonight. We had lots of little technical glitches that caused a lot of confusion. But we will call the meeting of the Historic Preservation and Architectural Review Board of the Village of Cooperstown to order. Michael, I have 5:21. Kyle, thank you for all your help, if you're still there. The first item on the regular agenda is 184 Main Street. Tom, you're with us, correct? Okay, you can unmute yourself.
Yep.
Would you like to tell us about your project?
Sure. So what we're looking at doing is adding a 10 by 12 shed to our backyard. We recently redid our garage and we're trying to make it so we can actually park a car in there. Pretty much it's for yard equipment, toys, all the typical paraphernalia. So pretty much it's the northwest corner of our yard. And the photo that I sent is actually pretty much identical to what's going to be built. The only difference from that photo is I believe the roof in that stock photo is green. Ours is going to be bronze. And the trim paint is actually going to be a match to the trim paint that we have on the house.
Okay. Okay. And then the materials the shed is made out of, that's just a rough cut.
Yeah, so it's tongue and groove.
Okay.
But it's a vertically mounted tongue and groove.
Okay. And do you, just out of curiosity, do you know what type of wood it is? Not that would weigh into it, but I'm just curious.
I don't actually. That's a very good question.
But it's just going to be a treated or sealed wood. It's at some point it'll get a coat of poly or something.
Correct. So it's actually going to have the stain. We select the same color that's on those boards, so hopefully it comes out something similar to what's in that photo. But it's kind of a yellowish green stain to try and mimic what's on the house without actually painting the shed.
Okay.
And then the trim paint to match, just so that it ties in.
And the color ultimately doesn't matter to us. I was just curious because I was just wondering about the patina of the wood. Anyway, so the foundation, are you going to have it on, are you pouring a slab? Are you doing just a
right? So
stone foundation of?
Yeah, so probably what we'll do is probably add a little bit of crushed stone just to make sure it's 100% level. But it's Yoder's out of Richfield. And so it'll just be dropped off the truck in place. So it'll be built on the 4x4 skids and just dropped into place.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the stone will probably help with some drainage and keeping the worst of the moisture out of there.
Yep.
Okay. Dave, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Pat,
it looks like probably it's hemlock.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. But the way it was stained, I just wasn't sure. So that would be great. Nope, I don't. And Pat, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. And I'm talking to my phone because Jessie just told me when she's going to try to log on after practice. I apologize. That may be the. Oh, Siri. Okay, great. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I can do it. I'll make a motion. Whereas the Historic Preservation Architectural Review Board has made the following findings of facts concerning the proposed application at 184 Main Street for a storage shed. Therefore, in section 300-26E. Two C and 3A, B, C, D, and therefore be it resolved.
Is it contributing?
The structure
The,
is listed as
property is, but
contributing,
the-
yes. This won't be, right? Thank you. Sorry, Dave. But the property is.
Are you looking for a second?
Please,
Second,
thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Liz votes yay.
Pat, yay.
David, yes.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Pat. Okay, thanks, Tom, for your patience.
Sure. Thank you very much. Have a good night, guys.
You too.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Take care.
You too.
Okay, let's see. Do we have Rich Buzzy or anybody from the Pioneer Patio on yet? Okay,
We do not. And I
Then,
spoke with him, and he's working this evening, so he wasn't able to come, and he actually wasn't able to either submit any further supporting documentation in time. So
okay,
if we want to just know that he's shooting for a similar awning as what they've got over at the Wax Museum, as what Perry uses with the same company. And if there's not anything in particular that if he stays within his footprints and height requirements and such, then he can get some drawings and present it more completely at a later point in time.
okay. Why don't we plan to return to that at the end of the meeting since others have been waiting then? And we should have more board members on at that point too. But that sounds like a reasonable plan. Okay, 84 Beaver Street. Stephen, would you like to tell us about your project? You can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I'm on my phone.
It's okay.
So it's very similar to the first request, although it's an 8x6 shed, so it's smaller. It would be located in the back corner of my lot. And I've walked on both Beaver Street and Chestnut Street, and it is almost impossible to even see the location from either, the street side. I think my next door neighbor, Tony Scalisi, he goes in his backyard, he's the only person that may see it. But very similar purpose, to store my lawnmower, some yard tools. I have 2 young children, so we have a couple of Power Wheels I'd like to get off the lawn and store, so it's out of sight. I don't know what else I can add. I've never been in one of these meetings.
Tell us, as I asked the owner of 184 Main, tell us what kind of foundation are you planning for it? Crushed stone, or are you pouring a pad?
I apologize. My son is shouting at me. I didn't want to be rude. Right now, I wanted to set up. Hold on one second, Lachlan. I wanted to set up the shed, and I'm thinking crushed stone. It's basically there's no grass that really grows back there because of all the shade and trees. So again, similar to the first caller, I do want it to be level, but the other point, I guess, is my hope is in that a year or two, when more contractors are available and more time is available, that I can reapply for a wooden shed, because this one is in fact metal.
And I
But-
saw that too.
As a positive, it does somewhat resemble a corn crib from the 19th century.
Remotely. Anyway, Dave, do you have any questions?
I would say that it probably doesn't have a floor, so I think I'm familiar with these. It's just a metal frame and a metal roof. With a,
Okay.
with a hinge door.
Pat, do you have any questions?
Well, if what Dave is saying is accurate, and I believe it is, how does the bottom in effect remain rigid, Dave? In a building like that?
It's basically just, you know, a square sitting on the ground and then they put this frame up.
Is there an underside to the doors to it? I mean, so that's all tied together and,
Yeah, I mean, it's all secured together, but it is in fact a frame. So I would most likely be using maybe some 2x4s in the ground to make sure that it wasn't moving. It does get there's a lot of trees in the back of my yard, so I don't think any wind would really be a factor, but
Yeah, you wouldn't want this in Kansas.
is there any way that the conditions can be provisional? That it be taken down when, at some future date when something better is available to him, to our client, if you will?
I'm not sure if there is a way to do that in terms of Jackson may or may not know if this could be provisional and you know, that we can dictate that when another structure is put up, it must be taken down. I'm not sure about how big your yard is and whether your setbacks permit two structures. Are you concerned about two structures being in the yard? Pat, is that the question?
No, it's more having a rickety structure remain in the yard indefinitely and eventually just get blown away or fall down.
Mm-hmm. I get that. And I think
if it helps,
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, if it helps at all, I mean, just timing wise, this close to winter, this is not my ideal solution. I honestly would like something different in a year or two and just take this down. But right now I don't have the room. I don't even think in my basement for all the stuff that I'd like to move out of the yard. So.
Gotcha.
Well, that's why I was interested in the provisional aspect.
I think in the application, the applicant also had said that he plans on this being temporary and hoping to replace it soon. I know that it's hard to get like one of those, I'm not sure about Yoder's and their time frame, but the Amish Barn Company is working on a 4-month time frame at this point for orders. So I guess just the supply chain of materials and pre-builts and the contractor availability, it sounds like is the biggest issue in terms of this is a somewhat temporary solution, if that answers your question, and a more permanent solution is going to be proposed as materials and contractors become available.
Yeah, that would be a fair statement.
Does that help, Pat?
For me, yes.
Okay.
I mean, in other words, I just don't want it to be there for almost ever until, you know, and offending people all the time it's coming apart.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of faith in those kind of buildings.
It may not age well. I get it. And I suspect the applicant gets it too. Is that,
Right.
You've kind of said that to us, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, if it starts falling apart, I'm going to get rid of it. I'm not gonna be duct taping it together, trying to, you know.
Good idea.
I'm sorry, what?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, right. No, I would never be that anyway, but I just, like I said, unfortunately, we can't even get people in the house to try and help us fix basic plumbing. So it's just been hard, supply chain wise.
Yep.
Okay.
Steve, I'd recommend that you put a couple of posts in it before winter in the center. I don't think it'll take the snow load.
I know we're probably challenging your confidence in this decision, and if you rethink it and want to pass other more solid structures, if you have access to them along to Jackson, please do that, and we will try to give you feedback. In the meantime, based on supply chain issues and Stephen's expression that this is going to be a temporary solution, is anybody comfortable, if you're done asking questions or making comments, is anybody comfortable making a motion?
I'll make a motion. Michael, just like the last one, except for the change in the location.
Okay,
Is that good enough?
yes, it should be fine.
Okay, Jesse, just thank you for joining us. Just to give you an update before we vote, so you can ask questions or you know what you're being asked to vote on. We're on 84 Beaver Street, where a temporary metal storage shed is being proposed. If you had a chance to look at the materials, the applicant expressed an interest in building this as a temporary solution because of supply chain and contractor delays. We've all instilled a great deal of confidence. I'm being facetious, I'm sorry, Stephen, in the durability of the structure, but we understand that he needs a solution to storage problems. So I don't know if you have questions or comments regarding 84 Beaver before I ask for a motion.
Oh, yeah.
It needs to be seconded.
Yeah,
Do we want to wait till Jesse reads it? Okay.
Yeah, since she is in the meeting, Dave, I thought I'd let her just, if she
Right.
had anything. Thank you.
oh,
Are you all set, Jesse, or do you need more time?
you're muted.
Yep.
There you go.
Do you have any questions or comments before we move forward with Dave's motion?
I don't think so. I think it's okay.
Okay, great. Pat or
I'll
Jesse,
I'll
what do you do?
second the, I'll
Thank you,
second the
Pat.
motion.
Very much. Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Liz votes yea.
David, yes.
Pat, yes.
Am I a voting member tonight?
You are.
I thought Roger was coming. Okay.
Roger, yes, he should be arriving soon,
Okay. All righty.
and we'll still need you.
Jesse votes yes.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Stephen, as I said, if we have really made you question your choice, please let Jackson know if you're considering something different, and we'll revisit it. Okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. Just to be clear, what just happened?
We just approved what you proposed, but we also
Okay.
certainly gave you a lot to think about. So,
Well, yeah, and I hope all of you understand that I'm not trying to pretend that this is the best solution. This is not what I'm looking for, but unfortunately, I just don't.
Oh, I
Um,
certainly understand.
we understand. Yeah,
Yeah, so I appreciate your time.
thank you. Good luck. Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
So the next item on the agenda is 34 Maple Street. Is Bruce Ratton with us? Okay. We'll move on to 2 Beach Street. Is Gary with us?
Gary is working on it. I think he has to sign in from the cafe possibly, and
Okay.
was unable to do so. So he was giving it another shot. I just got off the
Okay.
phone with him.
Okay, so Nick is here, so we'll move on to 24 Lake Street and address the replacement of existing window as proposed. Nick, would you like to tell us about the project?
Sure. Oops, sorry, my phone's ringing. Let me turn that off.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Oop, hold on. Hey, All right, so yeah, this is the Grander residence. We're still chugging along, doing a million things. We are proposing there is a casement window in what used to be the kitchen. It was installed in, I think, probably the 1950s when they renovated. We just want to replace it with a double hung window to match all the other windows on the house. It would be built custom wood, same to match the exact same specs, basically. So yeah, nothing too crazy there. And then once we get through this, I did have one other question related to dormer windows. I just wanted to ask you guys, but let's start with this one. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us about just the division of lights, just
Oh,
so
sure.
we're clear?
So it'd be a custom window. It would actually have true divided lights. This would be a 6/6 real wood window, real divided lights, single pane glass, actually. Yeah, built to match
And
others.
one window in that location, just one 6/6?
Just 1 6/6. Yep.
Okay. Pat, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Jesse, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Dave, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I would love to if I knew how. Dave, can you help me out?
Or
All right, I'll do it.
Thank you, Dave.
Whereas Historic Preservation Architectural Review Board has made the following findings of facts concerning, what is it?
24 Lake Street,
44 Lake Street?
24.
I actually think
24.
I actually
Yeah, I don't have an address though.
Okay.
24 Lake
It's
Street.
a typo. It's
Oh,
actually
it is. I apologize.
Yep.
Yep,
Just
there's a
for the record.
typo there.
Yeah, it's actually 46. I'm sorry.
It is.
Okay.
For the record.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Well,
Dyslexic. Sorry.
Michael, you know what the address is now?
I do 46 Lake Street. That
All
is.
right. The structure is listed. Therefore, according to section 300-26E, 2A, 2B, 2C, 3A, B, C, D, and 5.
It gets all the letters tonight. I was making a joke. Okay, thank you, Dave. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. And any discussion? Liz votes yay.
David, yes?
Pat, yes.
Jesse, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you, Nick.
Yep. Oh, I had one super
Oh,
quick
yeah.
question. Yeah. So, and this, if we have to come back for next month, that's fine. But a couple of months ago, I had come before you guys, same project regarding dressing up the Second Empire dormers and the mansard roof. And it was, if I recall, approved, but at the time there was a question of whether we were going to try to leave the existing 6/6 sashes or try to replace them with 2/2, which is technically what it had originally. I wanted to sort of, I wasn't sure looking back, and this is something I can check with Jackson later, if it was like a blanket approval, because the client would like to use 6/6s up there, which is a little weird because it's, well, the whole house is a little weird. So I just wanted to, I couldn't remember if the whole thing was approved, and if you don't happen to know off the top of your head, that's fine. I just wanted to mention it.
Jackson might be able to look it up
Okay.
formally in the opinion, but the 6/6s are currently there, correct?
They're currently there. And so we would be dressing up the other stuff like we had talked about in that one meeting, making it more Victorian, but we would leave the existing sashes, which is a little funny, but the whole house is a little bit funny.
Does anybody have any questions for Nick?
These are dormers in the mansard roof?
They are, yep. And so they were built as 2/2s. They were changed to 6/6s in the 1950s. And so what we're doing essentially is we are bringing the dormers back to their original appearance, minus the sashes, which we're leaving from the 60s.
I think those are pretty definite, are they not, Jesse? In terms of 2/2?
Yeah, I would be disinclined to say you could do 6/6s if you're going to replace them. They really should be 2/2s.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess maybe what that means is for next month, I could come back again with sort of the final thing, or I could just bring both again and bring both for your approval and see what happens.
I think it would be helpful to bring us that information and,
Refresh our memories.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Very much.
Okay.
And
All
Nick,
right.
I'll dig back into the past decisions and we'll see where we ended up on those.
All right. In
Great.
worst case, I'll just come back next month. So have a good night, everyone.
You too. Thanks,
You as
Nick.
well.
Thanks,
Take
Nick.
care. Okay, I think that Gary has joined us now. So we're gonna address number 5 on the agenda, 2 Beach Street.
That's
Gary,
correct.
can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great. So tell us about your project.
Okay. How can I help you?
Okay, so you submitted the information that, and is this the exact same kind of information that was submitted for the permit you were issued a while back, or have the materials, the specs changed at all?
To my knowledge, there has been a couple changes. One, the second story is going to be minus a bedroom and an added bathroom on the upstairs. And it's going to have a double deck in the front. And I'm not sure what David did about the siding. I think he may have changed it from a wood siding, a novelty siding, to vinyl siding. He said that he went up to Irish Hill and he saw that many buildings already have vinyl siding, so he didn't feel there would be any objections to it.
So we have in the materials that we were sent, it says brown vinyl siding, brown metal roof, white vinyl windows, and pressure treated deck. So
Yes.
and then do you know anything about the plans for the doors, Gary?
Yeah, I know that on my last application, there was a question whether or not that my access door should be facing the road. But they approved it the way it was, and that house is at least 70 feet off the road, and the design of the house isn't really set up for having an access facing the main road.
Got it. Do you know the materials the doors are going to be made out of? It looks like there are a couple of French doors on the east side, and then there's the door on the west side.
I'm not sure offhand what he had in mind, honestly. I do have a door downstairs that I probably would use on the entrance door in the back, and that's a metal door with windows attached to it on the side of the door, and also glass in the door.
Okay, so it's got a side light as well as the door,
Yes.
a side light in the frame. Okay. All right. Pat, do you have any questions?
No,
Jesse, do you have any questions?
Well, I'm trying to find this
I
meeting
understand.
fell off my radar, which is my fault, not anybody else's fault, but I'm looking for the information on the property.
So this was in an email that, if I it was in the original.
Yeah, no,
email.
I've just
Okay,
found
got
the
it.
email.
Okay.
So this house is set back above the little house that's right on the corner there.
Well, there's David Fundus is at the one property on the upper part of the driveway. and Mark McIntyre's on the bottom, and Glenn Falk is the house below.
Yeah, I know where Glenn is, and Mark McIntyre, the house I was referring to is Mark McIntyre. So this is set back in, is this a new building that we're talking about?
Yeah, I started the project a number of years ago and put in the cellar and then ran out of funds. And so now I'd
Okay.
like to complete the project. It was pre-approved before. I did pay the fee yearly to keep it alive, and they finally gave up on me. So,
Okay. All right. I see. How visible is it from the highway?
well, it's just way back in there. It's probably
Okay.
the least visible of any of the buildings on that street. It
Yeah,
has a
and it's-
narrow driveway. The driveway's, I think, 35.5 feet wide. It is, I had to get a variance to allow the access. So
Okay.
it's not obtrusive into the
Okay.
main road down there.
All righty. That gives me enough to work with. I don't think I have any real big questions. If it's not going to be very visible, I think, and it's new.
Pat, you said you were good. Dave,
I
do
am
you
good.
have any questions, Dave?
No, I don't.
Okay. Gary, when you know the materials, when you're sure about the door you're using on the west side, and when you are have specific information about the materials and configurations of the doors on the east side, we will ask that you submit that information for a field change. You wouldn't have to pay another application fee or anything, but we'd like to make sure we understand what you're using, and that the materials on file represent what was used. So as you get closer to finalizing the door choices for all 5 of those doors, if you could get them to Jackson.
Sure, no problem.
Okay. And then we'll add it to the agenda at a meeting as a field change and review that. Otherwise, if folks don't have any questions related to this application, would anybody like to make a motion? Jesse, are you set up to make one, or would you prefer not to?
I'm really not set up to
Okay,
make one.
okay.
I'm really sorry.
No, it's okay.
The
And
lingo,
I
I have not made the
apologize.
time to really make the lingo my own.
Yep. Okay, I don't have any of my HPAB materials with me either, because I'm doing this meeting remotely tonight also, and I apologize. But I will try to make the motion. Michael, we might have to fill in the gaps. And if people could help me with the letters and numbers, because I don't have the law in front of me. So if while I'm beginning the motion, if somebody wants to look at the law and make some suggestions about letters and numbers for new construction. Be it resolved that at the HPAB meeting on the 12th of October 2021, the proposed construction of a new home at 2 Beach Street to reflect what was already approved in 2004 is as submitted, is approved with the condition that when the doors are finalized, the applicant will submit that information as a field change to be reviewed. Does anybody want to throw a number and a letter or two in there for me?
Liz,
I can do it for you, Liz.
Thanks, Dave.
question before you do that about the motion, because is it exactly the same as previously approved, or is it with the changes that he was talking about in materials?
It is with the changes in materials as submitted. Thank you, Michael.
You want the numbers, Liz?
Yes, go ahead, Dave.
2C,
Thank you.
3, A, B, and D, I assume. I'm not
Mhm.
that familiar with the Upper Rock Street.
3AB and what was the rest of it?
I said 2C,
Right?
new construction, and 3AB, A and B and C.
Okay, PC, 3AB and C.
Okay. Anybody have
That
any?
related to scale, texture, and visual,
Thank you.
or no, general design, scale, and texture.
Thank you. Okay, anybody have anything to add to that? Can we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Pat. Any discussion? And Roger, we're on to Beach Street. If you have any questions regarding it before we ask for a vote. Roger, are you good with this?
Roger, can you hear us?
Roger, can you hear us?
I don't think you can.
Okay. All right, I will try to call Roger and see if he can hear us. In the meantime, we do have a quorum while we work out this technical difficulty. Since there's no discussion among the quorum, Liz votes yay.
David,
Okay.
yes.
Pat, yes.
Jesse, yes.
Roger, are you able to hear us yet? Okay.
There he is.
Oh, Roger, can you hear us? Okay. All right. So Michael, this will be non-contributing. Gary, thank you very much. Did
You're
we
very
lose
welcome.
Gary?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Support.
All right. Before we move on to number 7, 38 Walnut Street, let me try to call Roger and see if he's having trouble and if I can talk him through it.
Okay. Yeah, because it's not that he's muted.
Yeah, he probably just needs to unmute himself.
Yeah, but it looks like he can't hear us. And that's not usually, that we usually is we just muted.
Well, you need to unmute your speakers on your on your system.
He may not have his volume turned up on his.
Oh,
Yeah.
oops, fine now.
Michael or Jackson?
Yep.
I don't know, does Gary, can you turn off Gary's microphone at this point? And I'm working with Roger to get him back in.
Here's Roger, making the audio. Can you hear?
Roger's gonna ask Carla to help him troubleshoot because all my solutions didn't work. So anyhow, we'll move on to 38 Walnut Street. Keith, thank you for your patience.
Hello, you there?
Hi. Yes, would you like to
Okay,
tell us
thank you.
about how your project is evolving, Keith?
Well, it's it's evolving. I sent Jackson some. Okay, I see pictures up there and whatnot. Anyway, so I brought my engineer in. We looked at it, and as stated before, above the ground, the framing is structurally sound. Okay. The big final straw was the foundation, which needs a total replacement. Okay. So in his opinion, he informed me on a little more information that I wasn't totally aware of. We're going to attempt to do so. So I'm going to withdraw that application to remove the structure at this time. And we're going to try to work with what we have. Now, on that one there, there's the existing structures highlighted in green. Okay. And there's two additions on the back. The porch addition is, I think it's only 3 years old. It's fairly new. The other living space addition, I couldn't tell you the age of it, but it is like 2x6 construction. You know, it's got the pink insulation in it. But both of those really need to be removed to replace the foundation on the historic structure, the contributing structure. Without doing that, it'd be very difficult to do so. So at this time, that's my objective, just get approval to remove those two things so I can fix the foundation, and we'll move on from there.
I appreciate you revisiting that and talking to your engineers some more. Jesse, do you have any questions for Keith?
No, I think that's a good plan. I guess one of the things I'd recommend maybe you look at is go over and look at the house on Eagle Street that's getting a new foundation put underneath a building that's a little bit younger than this one. But it's probably going to be a pretty nice model for doing just this kind of work. But I'm glad to see that we're going to work towards keeping this one on the landscape. I think it's an important example of type in a place where we have very few or none that match it. And it really does it illustrates a certain period that is not very well represented in the village. And I'm glad that we're gonna figure out how to keep it. And the addition, I've been in there. I think the addition could be replaced with something that would be absolutely suitable. It's on the back of the house, and same thing for the porch. Those are both things that you probably want to put back, but they might be a bit different from what's there now.
Thank you, Jesse. I think later we would want to put some kind of addition on. It might not be the exact same thing,
Yeah.
but it would be something. And I'm not sure. I'm trying to read and understand the laws, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm not sure what would be applicable, because it probably would change, because that addition doesn't make sense to the floor plan at all of the house.
Right.
So
Yeah, my guess is going towards the back would be your best bet.
Exactly.
And, it's got kind of a nice backyard. So you've got something to work with there. So
okay, yeah. So the intention would be to leave the front. I don't know if facade is the right term, but the look from the road, leave that intact, and any changes potentially down the road, put them to the rear to make it a more usable living space, and just keep the characteristic of that house in the neighborhood intact.
Exactly. Thank you. That's the goal.
yes. Excellent.
And I think, especially that end of Walnut Street is quite a bit more intact in terms of its character than the other end of Walnut Street. So I think that plan, moving back into the yard as you try to augment the space and usability of it is a great idea. And I don't want to contradict Jesse. There's certainly a lot of work going on with the house on Eagle Street. They have also encountered some substrate issues, so that we don't want to frighten you. I hope your house does not have the substrate issues that house has. Okay, so I'll just say that as a caveat to what Jesse said. Okay.
Yeah. Every site will be different. Geologically, it's probably a bit different over here than it is over there. So you don't know what you're going to run into, but yeah.
Well, it's wet and there's a lot of clay, and we'll just try to mitigate those things the best we can. So
Yeah. Okay. Pat, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good with that.
Roger, you're here. Can you hear us?
Yes.
And you can talk to us. Great.
Good. No questions.
No questions. Okay.
Oh, there he is.
Dave. I'm sorry, Pat.
I said Roger, I see Roger now.
Yes, and we can hear him too. Okay, fantastic. Dave, do you have any questions?
Does this constitute a public hearing, or is it not?
It does not need a public hearing for the removal of a portion of it, as far as I understand. They're not. Jackson, that's a really good question. But it is the rear and later section of it, addition. I think
that is a good question that I don't know the answer to right off.
Okay.
I know we discussed this many times as to what constitutes a public hearing, what does not.
Thank you for catching that. Maybe we can do two things. We can vote on the proposed removal of the section as proposed for foundation repairs, And then if Jackson determines that that is not legitimate vote and we need a public hearing, we can schedule a public hearing for the next meeting. Does that sound fair to everybody?
Yeah,
That way
Works
we
for
won't
me.
have to make Pat wait for the next meeting and Jackson has time to do that research. But thank you, David, for catching that. And I'm really kind of racking my brain right now thinking about whether it would need a public hearing or not. And I think Jackson and I have to regroup on that. But in the meantime, if we could vote on it, assuming that it does not, so Keith can keep moving forward unless Jackson determines that it's a problem.
And I don't plan on removing anything probably to the spring. We're
Okay.
on hold for now. So anyway, it's not a huge time issue at this moment.
Okay. If people are comfortable voting, great. Would anybody like to make a motion? We lost Roger.
Roger, you want to make it? I've made the last 4.
We lost him.
Probably more than that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, I looked it up and it says on 2/9/2016, work at 124 Main Street, Cooperstown meets the criteria for work that has not required public hearings for partial demolition. So
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. So we do not require a public hearing. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, we don't have Roger. Anybody
Well,
feeling
now
brave?
it's
or
just an
should I-
empty chair. Look at it.
Wah, 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 wah. Anybody feeling brave, or should I go ahead and make another motion? To
No, I'll
expedite?
make it. I'll
Thank
make
you.
it for you.
Thank you, David.
Whereas the Historic Preservation and Architectural Review Board has made the following findings concerning 38 Walnut Street. Public hearing was not required. It is contributing,
Yes.
therefore,
There's
According to
Roger.
section 300-26E, 2A, B, 3 doesn't apply. Therefore, be it resolved,
Thank you.
so just 2A and B?
just 2A and B.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
second,
Thank you, Roger. Any discussion?
Oh.
Okay, Liz votes yay.
Jesse votes
David,
yes.
yes.
Pat, yes.
Roger, yes.
Awesome. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much, Keith, for working with us. And as you know what you want to do, when you want to do it, come back and see us.
Okay, will do. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Okay.
Okay.
Liz,
Yes, Pat.
may I ask to be excused at 6:30? I have another appointment that.
Thank you
pretty
for
pressing.
making sure we had a quorum when we needed you. Thank you very
Right.
much.
Well, I'll stay till 6:30, but
Yep. Oh, I wasn't even looking to see what time it was, but yes, thank you. That's fine. I think now that Roger's in his seat and and Jesse's here, we'll be good when you have to go. Okay. And let's, maybe we have Pioneer Patio, that Jackson, if you'd like to quickly review what Rich told you and see if people are comfortable voting on that or want to see more specific information from Rich before we move forward or meet him before we move forward, we'll know that then. So go ahead.
Yeah, he said, so the material and the provider of the canopy is going to be the same as what was approved in the past for the first floor. He did say that he wanted it to have a ridge of sorts rather than be a shed roof. And he's going to go for more kind of Bavarian German flag coloring back there. So it'll be to cover the upper deck, and it would stay within the footprint of the upper deck. And there's a stairway from the first floor deck to the upper deck that he would also like a canopy on, is what he expressed. It's going to be the same company that does the awning installation and repair and etc. for Perry over at the Wax Museum. That was pretty much what he had to provide, and expressed that he would be happy to, if it sounds okay, then he can get drawings together. So.
Okay, so he's not really looking for a vote tonight. He just wanted a sense of whether we are in favor of the concept, so he knows whether to move forward with drawings.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or thoughts as Jackson shares this information that he should share with Rich?
What if we could just see a sketch or as opposed to working drawings? I mean, I'm a visual person and I need to know what he's talking about.
Yep. I can work on that. And it's a spring project, so I can let him know that we want at least a simple drawing. I think he probably didn't want to spend money on drawings if they were going to be not accepted. But he's a busy guy, so it was difficult to get a hold of him before this meeting to get that together for him.
So a simple drawing. We know what Perry's awning has looked like. I'm not sure if it's still up. I know the restaurant was cleared out. I don't know if they took the awning down yet at the Wax Museum restaurant. But if Rich has, for example, he's looking for a brown and white or a sample of the, if the awning cataloger website has a sample of whatever he's looking for, I would guess we just want to get a sense of how this is going to look, whether it's going to look like a circus tent or, whatever. It is reversible. But I think it would be good to have an understanding of what he's doing. So anybody else have any questions regarding this for Jackson to convey to Rich?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Pictures.
No, I think what you said is very reasonable, Liz, and I think that we should encourage him to go ahead. If he's going to use the same design cloth, the same thing, I think it should be fine, but I'd like to see more of it in terms of details. So I think what you said is perfect.
Thank you. Dave?
No, I agree. I'd like to see drawings. I'm a visual person also.
I think it would be helpful to see a drawing because I'm trying to imagine shed versus peaked specifically. Yeah, and that's why, I know it sounded snarky, but I don't want it to look like a circus tent, especially since he just won that award for the beautification project. It would be nice to make sure, and I have no doubt he's trying to make it look nice, but it would be nice to have a sense of that. Okay, so Jackson, you have enough information to give him some feedback?
I do. I'll follow up with him.
Okay, great. Thank you. 34 Maple. Are people comfortable based on the material submitted voting on this, or would we like Mr. Ratton to come and speak with us? And Jackson, do you have anything you want to share in terms of this project?
I guess just that it's all well within the setbacks. The county codes is going to require a fence. They haven't made a decision on that yet. They were just hoping to put a down payment for the construction of this to happen in spring, and they have some mid-October deadline. So here it is. I don't know what the proposed hardscaping is, but we could definitely stipulate that any sort of, other than a hole in the ground at that location, we could ask that any further details be presented as field changes or whatever the board prefers.
I think I would assume that they'll get us information about the hardscaping as well as come to us for approval for the fence, because I think fences for pools have to be a certain height. Is it, and Jackson, you'll know this better than I do, but it might be higher than the 4 feet. I'm not sure. Or
No,
maybe-
I believe it is right at 48.
Okay.
But they are going to be required to not have, climbable rungs and things like that. I did mention that we were going to want to see the fence, and was told that they were aiming for a simple wrought iron looking structure.
Okay. Anybody have any comments, concerns before we approve the theoretical installation of a pool with more detail to follow?
I
Infield
think-
change?
I think all we look at is the deck anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, the hardscaping because it's in ground, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the fence, if it's higher than 4 feet then. Anything else, anybody? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Well, we haven't seen the material yet.
Yeah, and 26 feet just isn't a whole lot from that skinny sidewalk. It's really shoehorned into that site. I'd like to go up and look at it, which I didn't do before.
I know because I walk that portion. of the
Right, you live
street
right
very
there.
often. Yeah, that it's angled because of the hill,
Yep.
the side there. It is a tight spot. I've been looking at it, trying to figure out, how it's going to look. Roger and I had a similar conversation.
Yeah. I would like to, I agree with David. I think it's difficult. It was difficult for me to visualize a structure of that size, 34 feet, unless it's diagonally put in that.
It is
It
diagonal.
is diagonal. It's
that I
gonna,
looked
which
at.
is weird.
But I'd like to see an engineer's report on that, because I mean, what's to prevent water coming off the hill into the pool? I mean,
Yep.
Well, and that's the thing that practically strikes me, because I live in front of that hill, and I know how much damage the runoff from that hill does
yeah,
with our property and with the patio that the previous owners put in at our house. I don't want to begrudge them the pool, but I do have concerns about the hillside and the location.
I
Yeah,
agree
I-
with Roger. I think it should be engineered because
Yeah.
it could be a catastrophe.
that's right, David. And if you get all, you dig the hole and then you end up with a, catastrophic contamination of the pool. Now what are you gonna do? Well, you're not gonna use the pool, but now you got this empty pit there. I mean, yeah, I agree with David and Liz also. I just think we're asking for trouble if we give them a carte blanche and say, sure, go ahead.
And you can see they're trying to set it back as far as possible from the sidewalk.
I just think it's, join the gym, it's cheaper.
If it were moved up a little bit, so it wasn't as close to the hill, I'm not sure that still deals with the drainage and runoff problems, knowing the
That's
issues at
right.
my house.
Well, that's presumably what the engineer would provide.
So
I
think,
this
I
just
think-
seems like a can of worms.
yeah, I think it would be a good idea, given the location, especially near the hill, to Jackson, are there setbacks that they have to achieve with this? I'm just looking at how they have 22 feet and 26 feet, like 26 feet from the sidewalk, 22 feet from the, I guess the northern.
Yeah, roughly north.
Is that something that they have to achieve with this?
It is a structure, and I asked that they just show where it stood in relationship to the setbacks.
Okay, so
The pool itself is a structure. I don't know. It sounded like you guys were starting off saying that you only review the hardscaping, but then went directly into discussing the advisability of putting a big hole in the ground there, which is very much pool. So I don't know what we are charged with reviewing on this, if it's the hardscaping or the pool.
well,
and-
I guess the pool is part of the hardscaping in terms of the structure itself too.
This is- And quite honestly, the map is completely out of scale. It's not showing us, 22 feet on the right-hand side of the pool and 15 feet on the left-hand side of the pool are shown at utterly different amounts of space. I really want to see an elevation of what this is how this is going to sit on the street. This is an expensive project. Getting drawings for it shouldn't be a big deal. Really and truly, drawings that are to scale that actually show us what it's going to look like. I don't think you can approve something that looks like this, and I think an engineer should be involved.
Yeah, I
Well, I
agree.
think it's to the advantage of the client that he or she would want an engineer's report before they made a tragic mistake.
Yeah, I think that would be wise.
Mm-hmm. And I agree that there should be a more formal site.
Scale
site design.
would be a start, really.
Yeah. And I also wonder, although, I know they're trying to they're trying to do a lot of things here. I also wonder if moving the pool itself up and closer to the street and that fence line might help them avoid some of the issues they might have with that hill. But I think that they should talk to an engineer and really look at some of the issues they might encounter and get a more formal design.
That would be my feeling.
Liz, I think it's to everybody's advantage to actually present the most information that they can, both to the client and to us. And if they don't, then I think that we may be called to task for a failure that he has, and he has to endure it.
Okay. Here's a question, and I'm being the devil's advocate. I'm just putting it out there. If this is presented as a theoretical pool installation with the location and size to be determined based on engineering, because the owners are hoping to sign a contract for whatever reason by mid-October, are people comfortable approving a theoretical installation of an in-ground pool to be approved based on more detailed and formal plans? Or
I am not.
okay, that's fine. I just wanted to put it out there.
I am not.
Okay, I get it. I realize it was problematic, but I just wanted to see what everybody where everybody was feeling. Okay, so Michael, do you have enough information for the minutes? And Jackson, do you have enough information to go back to the applicant?
I think I do. My understanding is what you're saying is that the applicant needs to get an engineer's report to confirm that it will be a state installation, and that the board also needs plans showing materials and design in order to approve it.
Right, an engineer's report would be like a site plan that addresses some of the, is the site plan that has the correct proportions and layout, and also addresses any issues with runoff from the hillside that this is basically aligned with. Is there anything else that anybody would like to see in a formal site plan?
Doesn't this need to go through the planning board?
Yeah, should do.
I don't know, Jackson. Did the last pool have to go through? We have had very few pools. I had to point to the pool on Walnut Street we approved a few years ago, which was an above ground pool. So we almost approached that as a somewhat reversible project. Not that this isn't reversible, but I think that was more reversible. That was an above ground pool, correct, Jackson?
Yes, it was. And
Yeah.
I didn't see any evidence when I looked back at that one that it had gone before the planning board. And if this one needs to go before the planning board, I can get that going. I don't know why would that be, David?
Well, you're digging a big hole in the ground.
Yep.
What are you gonna do with the dirt? What are you gonna do with runoff? I mean, there are a lot of engineering questions here that haven't been answered, and I think that's something the planning board would want to address. Because you're concerned
site
about
plan
the
review.
street, and you're concerned about neighbors.
Makes sense. I'll put it on the docket for the upcoming planning board. And they need more info to go to there. Yeah, okay.
And thank you for bringing that up, David. Like I said to Jackson when he and I spoke about it, the only example I could think of in terms of my time on HPARB was the above ground pool on Walnut, since so few people are actively building in-ground pools in the village. So I think looking at this very carefully and asking all those questions is a very good idea. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments that Jackson should share with the applicant? Okay. Thank
Liz,
you.
May I be excused at this
You
point?
may, Pat. Thank you so much
Thank
for, thank you.
That was a delight. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
Pat.
guys.
Okay. So we're good with, we can close the book on 34 Maple, correct? Okay. The other item on the agenda is something that we're revisiting yet again, which is 14 Elm Street. The house that had the fire about 5 years ago, and is, even though we had met with the applicant 2 years ago and they had agreed to button up the structure so it would not be exposed to the elements. Although there were some temporary measures taken, there is more that really needs to be done. And I've been, nudging this because I've been getting nudged, as some of you may have been getting nudged, with Martin Tillapa, who has been talking to the owners, and this is owned by an LLC. And this is the only thing in the LLC, so there's not a lot of leverage, Martin has explained to me. I, however, asked Martin recently if there was any way the village could take some small steps to do what we have asked the owners to do to protect the structure, and then put a lien on the house since they are trying to sell the structure and recoup its investment in the time and materials when the house is sold. And he said that if we came up with a list, he would pursue whether we could do that or not. It's my hope that if the owners hear that there will be a lien on the house, they might actually go ahead and do this of their own accord. That is to be determined, but if not, at least the village might be able to move forward and take some steps. Jackson and I looked at it the other day, and Jackson, please chime in if you have any want to add anything, but very briefly, the open rear of the structure, specifically portion of the second floor and attic roof and the facing Doubleday Field, the tarp that was on there is at least 2 years old and has basically worn away to shreds. Now, we had given the applicant permission to demolish, I'm sorry, I'm tired tonight, demolish that portion of the structure anyway, but the suggestion would be to replace the tarp that's there now to at least protect that somewhat, just to reduce further moisture damage moving into the house and sections that might not be demolished. There is some leakage in the front roof, either from the sewer gas exhaust pipe area or around one of the chimneys, or just because of compromised shingles because of the fire. And because of that leakage, there is water penetrating both the second and first floor in the main section of the house closest to number 12 Elm Street, in what would have probably been the parlor, and then the room above it. And that, you know, not the end of the world, but we were there after a somewhat rainy day and there were some pretty big puddles. After another winter, each winter that moisture continues to get in like that is going to certainly do more damage to the flooring, if not the structural members of the house. The most visible aspect of deterioration is around the front sill, especially at the threshold of the doorway. And although the sill seems pretty intact, with each winter and the snow buildup and the moisture encroachment, we are doing more and more damage to that sill. So I would ask that some modest, simple steps to encapsulate that front entryway and protect it from more precipitation would be ideal. There are a couple of broken windows on the 16 Elm side of the building on the second and third floors, I think mostly, that ideally should get covered at least with heavy mill plastic to prevent any real entry of elements and deterioration there. And there are a few clapboards missing on the front corner on the 12 Elm Street side. We're not talking about expensive materials with any of this. We're talking about really just trying to keep more precipitation from entering the house during the winter. The argument was 2 years ago, well, we're trying to get this, or years and years ago, we're trying to get the smoke out. We're trying to, it smells bad, blah, blah, blah. But at this point, all of the smoke is out of the house now, and it's time to try to at least protect these areas a little bit. So that list is pretty much what Jackson and I came up with. Jackson, did I miss anything?
No, I think that covers it. I feel like you expressed that the water was leaking from the front roof. And when you and I were there, we saw the water is leaking from the back roof, from the valleys and chimneys, and coming down to the ground floor and then running into the front. Just so,
yes, I'm sorry.
I think the front roof is pretty sound, but the back is in dire need. Yeah.
So tarping that middle section where the roof was compromised during the fire, and to ideally prevent that water from coming in and moving through the house into the front section is thank you for clarifying that, is kind of what would be ideal. So more tarps on the back and the middle section to prevent precipitation from coming in. Modest encapsulation, God bless you, whoever that was, of the threshold and front doorway, and protect, somehow encapsulating the windows that are broken on the 16 Elm Street side. And whether it's with clapboards or some other material, sealing up where there are missing clapboards, where kind of there's also missing interior wall on that one section facing 12 Elm Street as well. But it's a very small section, but it should really get sealed up to prevent more damage there. Given all this, I don't want it to be Liz's folly. I know I've asked for formal statements in the minutes in the past. I would love it if we could document in the minutes that these things need to get done, and ask the village to take the lead in doing it and put a lien on the property for the cost of doing it if the applicant has not done it by a certain date. For example, if the applicant is given notice shortly after this meeting and the village attorney and the trustees weigh in as in favor, possibly something like by mid-November, if the applicant has not done it, the village will do it and put a lien on the property. Martin has really asked us to formally put this list together. I asked Jackson that we take the next step in doing it through this meeting, so it's formally documented in the minutes. And ideally, if people are willing to make a motion to ask the trustees to move forward with this, then we have a formal process in place. Any questions or thoughts or comments or?
No, I think it sets a good precedent. That building, shouldn't be allowed to be, demolition by neglect is not considered an acceptable behavior in listed buildings. And I think that the village has been a bit slack historically on pursuing this. And I think this is a pretty gentle way of pushing. You could be a lot pushier.
And really, in time and materials, we're talking low four figures at the most.
Yep.
So it's not a huge investment on the part of the village.
Yep.
Honestly, I fear that the applicant is really thinking that the property is a lot more valuable once the house cannot stand. And, I would like to see that not come to that.
Yep.
So I think, at least HPARB can try to encourage the trustees to move forward in this manner.
I support it.
Dave or Roger, any thoughts?
Well, being the devil's advocate, what is our aim with this regrettable state of affairs on that in that structure? Are we hoping eventually you get the thing replaced, repaired, or
Rehabilitated? Yeah, it is for sale. The owner has told Martin that he does not plan to put another dime into the structure. That's a quote from Martin. It is for sale. People who some people, are looking at it in terms of what you can do to save the structure and live in it, and getting somehow a $350,000 estimate in terms of investment. And some people are looking at it as, how can my family really enjoy this, and coming up with $800,000 numbers for that. So it really depends on who's buying it and what they want to do with it and what they're willing to put into it. But we all know that if it were a vacant lot in the village, it would bring more than the low hundred thousands they're asking for it. And somebody would then build and spend more than $500,000 building on that lot. And it would be really sad to see that structure, which is otherwise really solid.
Yeah.
And Jackson, you may want to speak to that. Jackson was a lot braver than I was in terms of heading down to the basement and heading up to the attic. But the main street side portion, oldest portion of the structure, is in really good shape.
Yeah, the framing's really solid, and the biggest danger to it is water intrusion over time, and the fire didn't really touch most of the front of the building. So whatever made it contributing before is all quite intact up there if it can be prevented from further deterioration.
Right.
Any other questions or thoughts or comments? Or the goal would be to save the building, and we
And make it
But-
habitable.
yeah, and we spoke to the applicant 2 years ago. We understand they're trying to sell it. We gave them permission to demolish the rear section. Is that permit expiring now because it's 2 years old, Jackson, too? It'll be 2 years old in November.
I do
But we
believe
also asked them to enclose and encapsulate, the structure to prevent further damage. So we did, we met them in the middle 2 years ago. I don't want to penalize the owner, but I also do not want to see the hardship on the structure continue because of neglect. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Not sure what exactly I want to say. It doesn't really fit your, the numbers and letters, which is
No,
why
I
I'm
don't
willing
think
to
it
do it.
has to because it's not an application per se. I think,
I make a motion to support, let me think how to put this. To ask the village trustees to be prepared if the owner will not secure the building, to do minimal work to secure the building against water damage, with the anticipating that the building will be, at least the main structure, will be rehabilitated. Make it possible for that to happen. That's not very well worded, I realize. I'm sorry. Should I write this down and then read it to you? I'm not sure what to do. It's kind of a weird one.
I think you could feel free to write it down, but I think it makes sense unless you want to try to wordsmith it some more.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay with it because I know Michael will make it tidy and clean for me.
You want to add something about the lien?
Yes, we do need to say something about that if the village were to do this, that it would place a lien on the building, that the owners would have to, pay off either through sale, as part of its sale, or themselves if they undertook the work.
Okay, now Liz, if you put a lien on the building, or if the village does, what does that mean?
It means that when the building gets sold,
Oh, if it gets sold,
it gets sold. Whatever the village has put into the work that we had, that we are asking for, and we're talking tarps and heavy mill plastic for the most part, maybe some plywood, and the time to tarp the roof and the labor to tarp the roof, and install the heavy mill plastic or the plywood. It means the village would then come up with an estimate of time and materials and put a lien in that amount on the building. So when the building is sold, that amount comes to the village before the owner gets the proceeds.
Basically, the lien would be filed with the county clerk, correct?
I would.
And so it just becomes, it's like having a lien on a property for someone who's got medical expenses that need to be paid out of the sale price before the property changes hands. That's a common one, is medical expenses.
And do you want to add to that the steps are to be taken if the owner does not take the necessary steps to secure the building on their own by a certain date?
Yeah, within a reasonable time frame before winter sets in.
I think you should set a date.
Yeah.
I think, today's what, the 13th? No, the 12th.
And the
Um,
next trustees meeting is not going to take place for another 2 weeks roughly, right? Right, Jackson? It's the last Monday of the month?
No,
Um,
it's next week, isn't it?
it's, I'm not sure. I don't know the schedule.
From here, yeah.
Okay.
Certain.
So,
Since it's not a lot of work, they ought to be able to do it in 3 weeks.
so by
So
November
that would be the
15th.
15th of November or whatever. Maybe by the 19th of November, which is the third Friday. You know, we could have a sopping wet snowstorm in 2 weeks.
We could.
We've certainly had them for Halloween before. Seems unlikely, but we could.
The board, next board meeting right
Jackson, you're muted.
25th of October, and the one in November is going to be the 1, 2, 3, the 20, no, the 1, 2, 3.
It's Monday, the 25th.
Yes,
So until that Friday, the 18th, that makes sense.
19th.
19th, sorry.
It's okay.
what date are you saying?
By November 19th. And maybe if we expand, asking the trustees and the village attorney to pursue it, or to ask the village attorney to pursue it, something like that.
I think you may need to do a work list, a work and materials list, probably pretty promptly in order to actually make this happen that quickly.
So
who, I don't know who, is the village going to be the contractor to do that, or do you hire somebody else? How does that work?
well, that's going to be the village's call if they agree to this. We can't go that far. I think that what I outlined is basically the list that Jackson and I came up with. And it really does, for the most part, either include tarps for the roof, heavy mill plastic for the windows,
Yeah.
either
But-
plywood or Jackson had an idea about another material and protecting that threshold. Again, either some wood or at least heavy mill plastic where those clapboards are missing.
I think you probably do need a work list, time and materials list, tasks outlined for the trustees to look at. I think it would be.
I can put that together.
I think it would be in your interest to do that, or in our interest.
And thank you, Jackson. And if you want any more feedback based on what we've talked about, or if you want to share it with everybody, if anybody cares to see it, please let Jackson know. Thank you.
Okay, I can put that together. I did speak with Martin briefly about it, and it sounds like he'd be interested. I mean, once we've moved through this phase, he'd be interested in reaching out to the property owner and kind of saying, hey, look, this is where we're headed if you don't just take care of this.
And that's really my hope, that because we have been trying to nudge the owner. It's not like this is coming out of left field. Martin's been speaking with the owner. I've spoken with the owner, and the owner knows that this is a major concern. This started based on a conversation I had with Martin after the sale that the owner was so really hanging everything on fell through. I thank you for kind of solidifying that, Jackson, and we'll try to move it forward so the trustees and Martin have something to put in front of the owner. And ideally that will resolve it.
All told, we're talking about less than $2,500 probably, labor and materials.
Yeah. And most of
Liz?
it's really labor. Yes, Dave?
I gotta go. I got a 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Do we want to quickly vote on this so you have a chance to weigh in too?
I'm in
Are we
favor.
good? You're in favor. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
The
you, Dave.
minutes look fine.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah,
Okay,
Roger says yes.
Liz says yes.
Jesse says yes.
Great, thanks. And how do people feel about those wonderful minutes that Michael spent a lot of time on?
Excellent.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you,
they're good.
Michael.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of approving the
Aye.
minutes? And you had Dave's approval on that as well, Michael, so thank you. Okay, anything else we need to do? Thanks for hanging in there, everybody.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you very much, Jackson, and
Okay,
if you need more help with that, let me know.
Who motioned the minutes and who seconded the minutes?
What's
Oh,
that?
Oh, I can second the minutes.
thanks.
So Liz motioned and Jesse seconded?
Sure.
Sure.
And who seconded the motion about the 14 Elm?
I did.
Thank
Okay,
you, Roger.
Roger.
Roger. Okay, so
Yeah.
Roger, okay. We're good.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I know
Stay
it's been a
warm.
long day for everybody. Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.
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 Story neighborhood.